I think we were looking maybe not so much to make a book about her work, but about her practice, about her attitude. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of reflected in the choices we made.
Yeah, there are many images of her studio where you see the art piece, but it's in the context of the studio. You have many art pieces that are photographed unfinished. You have images of her children in her studio playing around. So we wanted all these kind of things to be in.
In this episode, I, Anne Bloemendaal, have a talk with the designers Joost Grootens and Dimitri Jeannottat from Studio Joost Grootens about the book Drawing Photography Archive that they created for Anouk Griffioen. It truly is a wonderful match, as the studio loves to turn complex matters into intriguing books. We talk about the bold choices they made and how they created a book that really suits Anouk and will push her career further. The book is much more than just an overview of her work. We also see how Anouk views nature, her family and her surroundings. And we not only see the final results of her work, the finished pieces, we also see the creative process in the studio with coffee, wearing socks. The book is a weapon, according to Joost, not only metaphorically, but also literally, because it's a large, rich and thick book. The book, Drawings Photography Archive, will be published in March 2026 by Japsam Books. At that time, the exhibition, now while it's still there, will also open at the Kröller-Müller Museum. All the information about the work of his studio, Joost Grootens, the book and the exhibition at the Kröller-Müller can be found in the show notes. Okay, Joost, Dimitri, thank you so much for having me here in the beautiful studio in Amsterdam. With a great view. I can imagine that it's really very nice working here. Can you please describe me your work?
Yes, so I worked together with Joost as a graphic designer for over 10 years now. And we have an ongoing collaboration on many books, sometimes just the two of us, sometimes with a bigger amount of people involved. We have at the moment, for example, Julie at the studio, who is there for many years as well. So it depends on the project, whether we need to be more than the two of us or not. And next to the studio here, I also have my own practice, and it's kind of merging a bit with each other in the sense that as I'm working so many years with Joost, I think my way of working next to the studio is also involved, also influenced by that, and vice versa. Mm-hmm. So I think the two practices actually merged a bit over the years.
Yeah, so are you really complementary to each other?
Similar and complementary at the same time, I would say. If it's only complementary, that's also not its recipe for a kind of working relationship, I would say. I think you said what we do, our practice. I think in the website we say most of the time we make books. And I think that kind of summarizes what we do. So we do other things, but books is the main thing, and thinking about books. And I should see that we're kind of surrounded by books. And that's one of the great things of making books, that you can look at other books. And it's a way of everyday learning what a book is and sharpening that idea of what a book is.
And it's not just books. You once said it were only complex and complicated books.
Yeah, but that's kind of the thing that we are that's something that we ended up making. So it's a lot or it's complicated.
Is that how you two have met? Like that love for complicated books?
Of course, yeah. Especially now after all these years and all these projects. I think on my own website I have roughly half that is actually made at the studio. Well, I contacted Joost at the time, short after my studies, because some of the books made here at the studio were important to me at the time as a student also. And just after the studies, I had the chance to design an atlas about the area in Switzerland where I'm from, historical atlas with many maps and data visualization and stuff. And I really enjoyed doing that. But I had the feeling that I did it all wrong and all too complex. And I thought that I wanted to learn a bit more about this. So it was quite logical to me that I would contact Joost. And he invited me to come here first for an internship at the time. And then I stayed all these years. So I guess it's a match in the sense that I was initially interested in this kind of projects. Of course, I I came here to learn more about it. And I was also happy to see that actually I didn't do it that wrong at the time. It's just training and doing it again.
I think it's a really special way of looking at, well, data or elements.
It's a specific way of looking at things. Now, I would say if we go back to the book, I think what we try to do is we try to make books that are tools for others to investigate things. So we give the reader tools, we give them kind of different sets of information in different formats to find out their own story that they want to discover. So we tend to not make books that say there's one way of looking at the topic only. So there's different ways, and it's up to you to find your own path in that.
In that way, the book is almost at the printers. Did you already know the work of Anouk?
Not me, no.
I knew the Instagram feed.
I can imagine that when you had the first view at all the work she has in photography, in drawings, in Polaroids, in the archive of her father, you really need like a kind of pathfinder because it is a lot.
It's a lot. It's also big. So there's scale in many senses in that kind of work, and also it's ongoing.
Last week, all the works were picked up for the Kröller-Müller Museum, and she sent me a message. Oh my God, I have new 30 meters of linen here. I only want to make drawings now. Yeah. So she never stops. And in that way, I can imagine that for this studio, for Anouk, was really brilliant because you really need a guide or a pathfinder in that massive amount of work. Because the first time, I think she sent in like 5,000 pictures or drawings or Polaroids or whatever.
I don't know how many she gave us. I couldn't tell. I just know we have at the end over 600 in the book. I don't know if she came to us hoping that we would organize this whole...
I think the only hope was to make a book.
Yeah, but we didn't organize it. We actually kept this messiness, so to say, because that's also what we liked a lot on her Instagram account. It's the way she jumps from pictures, private pictures, a work, her in the studio, a picture of a work that is not over yet, that is not finished yet. And we wanted to keep this. So we didn't try to organize anything, actually.
But how did you make the edits then? Or wasn't there any edit?
There was, I think, a very rough sorting by Anouk in what you could call chapters. And I don't think we want to impose a kind of order on this thing or kind of... I think what we always try to do when we start with the book project is to see what our role is in the book, in the project. And that can be very modest, that can be very imposing. But in this case, we just were there to serve what we thought Anouk needed. So we wanted her to tell her own story. And I think this flow, I think is a key word to also access the material in the book. It's a kind of so there's even, you could say, there's a kind of flow from chapter to chapter. It's one continuous flow. And in that sense, the Instagram feed, ironically, was very inspirational to us. Combination that images not work on their own, but they work really great in combination with each other. So process next to Polaroid, next to project.
Because a lot of these kind of art books or books with art, I feel there's some kind of difference in it. They have just one picture, one page.
And that's exactly what we didn't want to do.
Yeah. And actually you have title pages in it. So it's divided in, I don't remember, 6, 7 chapters. But the image flow continues on it. So you have the title just running over an image. So it's there, but it also doesn't break the flow of images. And that was important to us.
Well, there are even pages with 6 or spreads with 14 pictures on it, like, well, drawings, Polaroids, visuals, let's put it in that way. How did you end up putting those together? Because that can be based on color, some or...
She gave us the content, as you said before, already organized in a certain amount of chapters. And within these chapters, you had folders by, I don't know, for example, a series of Polaroids that she made in a trip to Portugal. And they were already in the same folder. So that helped a lot. You have small series within the flow of images. So that we try to use, and then the fine-tuning of which image goes next to which one is purely visual often. And You mentioned the color. That was also a very important aspect in the book. It's, I would say, 90% or 85% black and white. So we had also pleasure to decide when the color would pop out and be almost a small surprise once in a while.
Yeah, because some of those pages are really like popping out of the pages in green and in red.
Sometimes the spread is in color. Sometimes you have one color images in the middle of 12 black and white. So that's one of the aspects we wanted to use, because obviously black and white is highly important in her work. So that was really one of the elements that we wanted to use.
I think also maybe next to the flow and maintaining that, we also were thinking about what kind of book does Anouk need right now. And it is our first big book, our first major book, but we didn't want it to be the book of Anouk, because we see it as the first book of Anouk. So there will be more to come. So that's it. We didn't want to have a kind of very art historic, correct book. That's okay, one image on one page. But also we didn't want it to be modest. And we wanted to be a kind of, in Dutch would say stoer, which is something about self-confident, which I also think that fits Anouk. And we didn't want to make it too pretty. So we were kind of also very reluctant to give the book the title. This is a book of Anouk. And there will be many more, I hope, also by other designers and by other publishers who will make that. And this is, I think, the book that we would like to make with her, with Eleonore Japsam, on this moment in time.
Yeah, because this is like 20 years of work.
Yeah, but it's also only 20 years of work, of a career or an oeuvre that will be much longer. So we didn't want to say, okay, this is the book of Anouk.
Talking about the design of the book, a lot of people say, well, you just said, well, we thought, what is the book Anouk would need at this moment, and which will be the new basic Anouk book where others will follow. I'm still looking for why the book is as it is at this moment, because the book is abundant. It's a lot. I have the feeling like every page you want to go, oh, and what will be the next? It makes you hungry. It makes you more. And well, there are 300 pages, so it's not like a stage you're putting Anouk on. For a designer, you always say, well, we design to be at the service of the artist. And now you take quite a modest position in that.
So it's not necessarily modesty out of sense of insecurity of doing very little. Actually, it's hard work. And I think for us, it was also important that it's not a thin, small book, but it's a big book. It's a weapon. You can hit people with the book. And I think maybe we were looking, but Dimitri, correct me when I'm wrong, but I think we were looking maybe not so much to make a book about her work, but about her practice, about her attitude. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of reflected in the choices we made.
Yeah, there are many images of her studio where you see the art piece, but it's in the context of the studio. You have many art pieces that are photographed unfinished. You have images of her children in her studio playing around. So we wanted all these kind of things to be in. So yeah, in that sense, it's about her practice and her life more than a collection of very nicely photographed finished pieces. And I think the lithography, for example, goes in that direction, because we got a lot of images that were of unequal quality, as in not all of them professionally photographed. And we kept that in. And the lithographer, Mark Heisen, didn't try to improve that. So it is what it is. And that's what we wanted to show.
Yeah, so it's more like you get a side of studio life in how she manages to make all this work and how her children, the dog, the walks, life.
But also to remind the reader of the book is kind of the size of a hand.
And then you can really see how immense it is and how many...
That you can really enter the work. Yeah, so I would say there are many photographs of people who are, you see from the back, who are in the work. I think that's kind of a key image, I think, to understand.
Mm-hmm.
And you see a lot of people bowing into the work. Yeah. Entering the work and the woods and the plants and the world. Is that a way that you can compare it with making the atlases you make together? Because that's also a way of showing how a world can be seen. Well, it's quite philosophical, but you also give tools to imagine a world but you can choose. It's not like you enter here and then you go from there to there to there.
I think what I think is interesting about Atlas is that you try to translate all the information into an image, whether it's a map or it's a visualization. And here is also very much about looking. And there are texts in the book, of course, not that many, but I think it's predominantly about reading through looking. So I think that's what it has in common with the kind of Atlas.
No, it's not an A and WB thing that you fold out, but it's like real massive atlas with an immense index, which I thought was really very Studio Joost Grootens.
I think we didn't want to have the captions on the page, right? So we wanted to have so that's why they are in the back, and we have only of some works as the captions there.
Yeah, the ones that are photographed finished, and that when the image is really just about that piece, then we give the caption, but just the title and the year, no technique or format or whatsoever. This you find then in the back of the book. So it's just once in a while the name of the piece and the year when the image is really clearly about this piece, and for the rest it's numbered.
What was the biggest part of the job in this book?
I think just browsing through her folders before even starting. The preparation, get a good sense of what it could be, what is the content, what is available.
Yeah, so that's the process I think that you did, right? Kind of selecting the image and then making pages.
Yeah, so the preparation and foldering for yourself. And
I worked as almost like layers. So first just going through the folders and put on a page the images I thought could work. And then it's going over it again, moving them around to find the right combination. And then it's going over it again to actually make it nice in the layout, etc., etc. So it's more like it's going over it many times. And it's not...
and then finding a rhythm of the pages.
Exactly.
What you said about the color, the sequencing of the information.
Yeah, the cover is quite extraordinary.
Yeah, I think you chose a very interesting image, Dimitri. Can you maybe describe the image and maybe also say why it kind of resonates with us so strongly? Yeah.
Well, she has certain topics in photographs throughout the book that come back. For example, one of them is selfies, but all kinds of different selfies, also in mirrors and so on. And one of these variations is a shadow of herself against often a plant or leaves or something like this. And this is one of these that we chose for the cover. I had the instinct that I didn't want a drawing on the cover, because indeed it's not a monograph about her fantastic work, it's something else. So I thought it directly tells you that to not have a drawing on the front cover. There is one on the back cover in her studio. And then it also echoes, and it's a colored image. So it's also one of the 10% of color image that is on the cover. And it echoes with page 1 of the book. That is an archive from the collection that she has of photographs of her father. And he's standing next to also a kind of huge...
It's a bit ugly. It's kind of this photograph of leaves pasted on some kind of wall. So it's about leaves and standing next to it. I think what is nice about the photograph of the front is that you see her shadow and you see actually what she's seeing. And it's her way of looking at things, framing it. This echo with the page 1, that's also deliberately the same crop. So also page 1 immediately starts. The book starts with images first before you see the title page. And also at the same time at the end, the book continues with the images after the book is finished with a kind of imprint page. So the flow doesn't stop.
And the title of the book, it's on the back.
That's something that Eleanor accepted. She could have been against it because she's the publisher, so she has also more the kind of commercial worries about it, potentially, and she didn't even mention that it might be a problem. So that also tells how open and trustful she is with us.
And she trusts the book. She doesn't trust it. She's not necessarily out there for the thumbnail. That you have to sell it online so that the thumbnail should tell everything. Also, the cover is printed not on white paper, but on a kind of more brownish, it's almost like a paper bag. It's a paperback and a paper bag.
Yeah.
It's kind of hybrid. And I think that choice for this kind of, maybe not the glossy paper, the hyper white paper, and then putting a color image on top of a colored material. You don't want to kind of show the best of the image, but maybe more emphasize how it sits there as part of the overall book. I think those kind of things together I think also the weight of the book is important.
Yeah, we started with the idea like it's like an old-fashioned phone book.
That was the first thing that I showed her to as a kind of reference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, when I saw it in the PDF, I think the sequence is amazing because you really give me more and more and more. Every page is like a new discovery.
Yeah, and what I'm very curious about is the kind of, because the paper has a certain level of transparency, so it's not completely, so you will see something shimmering through from the backside. So how that will interact with the page then. I think the way we tend to work with these books is that we have a grid, but we try to hide it in a way. We just try to kind of always look for exceptions that it kind of doesn't hurt. But then, especially in this shining through on the other side of the page, there you feel there the kind of the grid brings this kind of calmness and quiet.
So it's like a 2-page grid.
Well, it's not. It's one grid. That's throughout the book. But then playing with front and back, and that's nice to. And I think this paper worked really well.
And well, that is also the way she works, of course, because there are so many projects in the same time, on the same page, the same moments in her, studio life. Because how did you end up with this book? Was it an idea of Eleanor to
I think
work
Eleanor
together?
was very important. I think she. We worked before. Where we made several books with Eleanor, and it's always a pleasure working with her. And she is I think she has a similar kind of attitude. Or I think I recognize her attitude. She's always looking for what kind of book is needed for the artist or for the institution, and I think that's also how we talked about it. I think in our talks that we had with Eleanor, it was also about what would Anouk need now. And I think it's also very generous of Anouk to allow us that space, that we could convince her, say, okay, we think you need this book right now in your kind of career or in your timeline or in your flow of things. And I think that then it's kind of, Eleanor was very decisive at certain moments. She let it go, and so the most, okay, well, now this should be the title. And she gets herself convinced by certain kind of choices, like what Dimitri said about the chapter titles, where we, by having the text on top of the images, it's kind of emphasizing the flow and not just say, okay, this is a kind of contained moment in the...
Yeah, this is a white page with big, bold letters.
Now you can breathe. No, there's no time to breathe.
No, just go on.
It's not like something stops and then you start a new chapter and it's something else. That would have been actually wrong. Because a lot of images are in a chapter, but they could have maybe been somewhere else. So it's there are chapters, but it's kind of flexible. So it would make no sense actually to have a white page and say, okay, that was it, and now we start with something else.
And I think that's also what I read in that index in the back of the book. If you see all those kind of descriptions and also the places and the times, you see that there's a kind of an ongoing, intermingling and entwined kind of path of projects that are.
It's almost like life. Like you don't go like, well, okay, tomorrow I start a new chapter. Now everything is different.
No.
Yeah.
You just said, well, we made a book which we thought Anouk would need, and she was convinced by us. What do you hope for the book?
I hope for the book that it's sold out really soon. And that's not because to make it a very expensive object, but that means that it kind of finds a kind of audience, it finds a readership.
What do you think the audience will be or should be?
Well, there are certain kind of themes that are kind of addressed in the book. That's about the relationship with nature. It's kind of intergenerational relationships between parents and children, and I think they are very universal themes. Also, nature versus urbanity, and there are many more. Growing up, and I think that will probably echo with many readers, different types of readers. I hope it will also come on the desk of those people who can help Anouk make the next step.
And what do you hope for the book?
I hope first that she's happy with it, but I think she will be, and she already is. She was extremely nice to work with and always very enthusiastic about our proposals. So I hope she's happy when she has it printed, bound in her hands. And then, yes, Joost, I hope she finds an audience with that. But for the exhibition as well, I hope it's a success and that she can, because that's the first book, but that's also the first major exhibition.
First solo exhibition.
Yeah, with all new work.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So I hope it helps her to have another one after.
Well, to the next step then. Thank you so much. This podcast was created by Anne Bloemendaal in honor of Anouk Griffioen's book Drawings, Photography, Archive, which will be published in March 26 by Japsan Books. At that time, the exhibition, now while it's still there, will also open at the Kröller-Müller Museum.